you're 3 albums in. Is it 3 albums now?
Two.
Two.
Two, but it kind of feels like more than that, because I did a few EPs before it, which were quite long.
Yeah. Okay. How do you kind of go to that album process? Is it like you wake up one day and go, I want to write an album? Or is it like you're writing a bunch of records and just kind of put it all as a package?
It's very much an album. It's very much like, okay, I'm making an album, because it's a long format. So
yeah,
you've got more space to tell a story.
Yeah.
If you're just focused on one track, then it's all about that track and making maximum impact. But if you know that you've got like a few fans that are gonna actually give the whole album the time, then you know that you can just be not indulgent, but I just think you can just tell a story that just is more like expansive and can take like little ups and downs and detours and things like that. So I really like the album format. I really like that you can, I wanted to have a lot more ambient weirdness on this album, but my manager and label were not too keen on that. They managed to convince me to hone it in a little bit, but so I mean, like, because if I go down that rabbit hole, you sometimes feel like, oh, I could make a concept album about like cereal or something, and then just like before you know it, like you've completely come away from. So that's the danger of doing an album. Like you can really go down like some deep, dark places.
Just turn into radio. Think you're Tom York and just be like, okay. Yeah. I feel that, but I think it's really actually interesting. Like, how do you respond to when your management and your label are like, rein it in, mate?
I normally tell them to fuck off, like initially, and then I might listen to a little bit and just take it into consideration. But ultimately, I'll try and do what's in my heart, as much as possible. I mean, I'm not great at listening to people, because I don't know. Sometimes when you've got a gut instinct about something, most of the time it's right. I 100%. Think like 9 out of 10 times. Sometimes you can be completely deluded depending on how your mental health is. But but a lot of the time, like, I think you should go with how you feel, because that's how you're going to make the best music.
But in this sense, like with the album, like, was there a bunch of records that you wanted to add on, but you were like, we probably shouldn't put that on? Like, how does that work?
Well, I'd finished it. And pretty much got it to the point where I was about to submit it. It was about I had like a few weeks left, and I'd put it to one side. Essentially, I'd finished it, and then I started writing some other stuff, and I sent it. I didn't even send it. I uploaded it to SoundCloud, to my own like personal SoundCloud, which I didn't realize my manager has access to. And he was like, "What's this then?" I was like, "What's what?" He was like, "I've seen like you've uploaded a couple of tracks to SoundCloud." I was like, "Oh, I didn't. They're just like demos and stuff I'm messing around with." Because I use like SoundCloud as like a journal in a way, like a musical journal. And he said, "Oh, well, by the way, I just sent it to your label." I was like, "Oh, well, great!" Like, that wasn't ready to be consumed, and they were like, and they want it to be the lead single. And I'm like, "What?" And that it was called "Start Again," the song, which is like the track that just came out with the album. And anyway, so they just said, "Yeah, we really like it." I mean, it was half finished as well at the time, so they were like, "But you got to finish it in like 2 weeks to kind of get the in terms of like getting the album delivery and all that." So I'm like, right, okay, I guess I better finish it. So there was 2 tracks like that. So I basically like had to finish 2 tracks in the space of 2 weeks, which was a bit stressful. So it's crazy, but there you go.
I think that's the amazing thing though, isn't it? Is like sometimes when you have a team around you that's like a little more stepped away from the actual creative process and can like hear it with a different perspective, it can literally it can really help our creativity.
I think you need that. I think you need that from whether it's from a friend or a label or a manager or whoever it is. I think you do need an outsider's like objective opinion, because you can be very immersed in your own world and not realize like that because the amount of like friends and producers that I've got that have made a track and they're like, yeah, I was just messing around with this or whatever. Like, this is like my worst track, or like, this is a joke.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like, this is your best track.
Yeah, literally.
Like, that happens an awful lot because sometimes if you don't put, maybe you're just more relaxed or you're just messing around, and like that brings out another side to your creativity and your persona that sometimes is like really compelling for other people, because for whatever reason you're just, it's a more affable piece of music, and people are just drawn to it because it's, maybe you just didn't care so much and you did it quickly or whatever, and it just captured a great little moment in time.
I totally agree. I was literally just talking to Dot from London Grammar about this on the podcast before, and we were saying exactly the same thing. And there's sometimes when you just catch a vibe and everyone loves it, and it's you almost like, oh, I've done it multiple times with me where I just like question myself. I'm like, why are they into this? It's like, this is not like musical genius. This is just the simplest thing I've ever done, and I could do this over and over again. But like, the crux of it all is I couldn't do it over again because it was literally that moment in time and that vibe that we just captured, and there's nothing you can do about it, but it just seems to connect, which is super interesting. With the whole album process, do you, because I talk going back from the beginning with you, like being more structured in your life and you being creative, when you decide that you're going to write an album, do you set a deadline?
I try. Well, not initially. Like, I think you need to let things just happen naturally and just start like the creative and get ideas. And I think you don't want to be thinking so much about like deadlines and stuff like that, for me personally. So, but once things start to form a little bit and you're like, oh, like, this actually feels like maybe a small body of work is happening, or something like there's like the for me, like the first thing that I did for the album was a song called Arms. And as soon as I did that, I realized like what I wanted. I had a complete vision for an album. So after I'd sort of finished that song, then it was like, okay, I can actually see a light at the end of the tunnel with this project. And therefore, like, I think I might have something in 5 months' time or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you say like, okay, to your management or label or whatever it is, your team, I think I can deliver something around this time. And then they'll say, okay, well, we'll start structuring, thinking about the campaign and bringing people together and looking to that date. And then as the months roll on, you can obviously like ascertain like, okay, am I like going to hit this target? And then you can like, you communicate with your team and they're like, you know, how are you getting on? Like, do you think, you know, so that's how it works for me. I mean, I've always, every single time had to like stretch out, like the deadline is always, it's never like, I never just get there early. It's always like, you know, a push and I need another month or whatever it is. Cause I'm just, I'll end up, you know, scrapping the whole thing or whatever.
Really? Is that your vibe?
I'll have at least like 2 or 3 complete like meltdowns where I feel like I need to scrap everything and like, you know, burn all the tapes or whatever. But no, I normally come out of it like after I've had a walk or whatever and some food. But yeah, I think it's very, very difficult to make an album. That's one thing I've learned. I think like because I've only made 2 albums now, but the first album, I remember it was in lockdown and it was very, very challenging because for me, like going out, whether it's like playing, producing, DJing, or with other people, bouncing off of people, that gives me energy and vibes and stuff. And so when it was in lockdown, and I was trying to make a record like completely isolated, it just felt so difficult. And now when I listen back to that album, I'm like, oh, this is very dark. Like there's moments on it that just feel like really, just like I wasn't in a good place.
But is that not like a diary of who you were at that time?
It is. It's just, you know, like I can't really listen to it now. Like,
really?
Because it just makes me just feel like there was like dark times, you know? Whereas like, yeah, this new album just feels more like the album that I wanted to make, and I feel like I just had all the ingredients in my life to make something that I wanted to make. Whereas I felt like there was just things missing with that first album, which is why it's yeah, maybe it's just not like the perfect depiction of model man, but it probably was in that
At that
moment,
time,
if that
yeah.
makes sense.
What are the ingredients in your life you need to make the album that you've made now?
I feel like, well, firstly, I mean, it's difficult to say what those exact ingredients are because they're probably different for each record. But the thing that really like ignited it for me was performing again and like being able to go out to clubs or whatever and just like. So as soon as like lockdown like lifted and I was out, I remember like playing in Manchester, a club called Yes Bar, and it was just so exhilarating. Like it was so like crowd were going nuts, and it was just I had a really good night. And that week I remember just like coming back just like full of energy and just wrote like 3 or 4 new ideas. And yeah, it just felt like, oh, I think I didn't realize it because I'm an introvert, but I actually need people in my life. Like I need like to bounce off of people, and I need to experience like things.
Yeah.
I need to like go out and have new experiences, whether that's like traveling or whether it's like just going out with friends or whatever it is. I need that in my life. Like, and and I didn't think I did, but it wasn't until like after lockdown that I realized that I did.
It's really,
that was the first ingredient.
It's really interesting you say that because I think, like saying yourself as an introvert, I kind of learned this probably like a year ago. I was listening to a podcast and it was purely based on the meaning of introvert and extrovert. And like, I didn't know this, but for me, because I would class myself as an introvert as well. And it was very apparent that like, we all still need those things in our lives. Like we need the friends around us. But it's more so about having closeness to people and like a connection with people. Whereas like an extrovert is like out partying a lot. Like we'll go to the after party and we'll be just happily just not know anyone and just get involved. Whereas for me, like you won't catch me at an after party unless like my best friend is going with me, or you'll catch me like I'd rather have 3 really close friends, but then the minute somebody else comes in on that I don't know, I can like go down into myself and become like a bit quieter and reserved. And it was really interesting because it was like what we do as a living is very extrovert, right? Like playing in front of hundreds or thousands of people, like it seems like we're all extroverts, but a lot of us aren't. A lot of us are just a bunch of weirdos that just but there is that importance of like even for me is like I'm pretty regimented with like seeing friends and family because I need that in my life. I need to have that connection, the like feeling of love, like that kind, which I think we all need. But like if I spend a week in the studio and I don't see anyone, by the end of that week, the music I'm making is fucking awful.
Right.
Same with like DJing, same with podcasts. Everything, if I don't have that like time with loved ones, friends, family, I really just go down into like some weird darkness. It's very, or like what I'm trying to create doesn't come out as good as what it would if I had that time to breathe. But I guess it's just having time out of the workspace, I guess, as well, which is healthy.
Yeah, it was a strange time, wasn't it? Looking back now, God, thank goodness we're out of it and like we can go out again and just have fun and see people.
What's the second ingredient?
The second ingredient, I think, is like having some source of inspiration that is not necessarily like another human being, but like a thing. It might be something philosophical, or it might be maybe it's like a muse or someone that is dead or whatever, like a poet or something that just inspires you, like beyond yourself. Like for me, it was probably like film in a weird sort of way. Like there was a few films that I was watching at the time. I was watching like loads of Stanley Kubrick, and which obviously like he's a great. Everyone's seen all his films and stuff. But yeah, I remember watching Eyes Wide Shut, which is a really weird film, and there's loads of space in that film where there's just like it feels like nothing's really happening, and there's like no music. There's like one piano note or whatever. And that was like quite an inspiration for me because it was just like having space in the music and just how telling a story in a very sort of like a minimal way, but honing in on one like singular thing. So that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me, like with this album, because I was like, oh, I want to write some stuff that is like very like singular ideas. That is like minimal stuff happening. And yeah, so that was like another thing, like film, I guess, for me. What else? Yeah, I mean, like all of his films. I did like a marathon of like all of his films. And like Eyes Wide Shut I think is his last film.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
It's got Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise in it.
Okay.
And they're at their peak as well. That's like 90s Tom Cruise, like looking brilliant. I think like it starts like the opening sequence is like Nicole Kidman like completely naked, like getting dressed. So if there's any like if you want to watch a film, then I'm giving you a good reason to watch it. But and then like I can't remember what came before that, but yeah, I mean there's like Clockwork Orange, The Shining, 2001: Space Odyssey.
I've never watched The Shining.
So good. It's so good.
I'm really
so scary as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not into like, I know it's not a horror, but like it also is to a certain. It's more of like a thriller.
I'd say it's a horror.
Yeah,
I'd say it's a horror because I think that what's cool about Kubrick is that he's made the best film in every genre. Like he's made the best sci-fi film ever, 2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah,
he made the best horror ever, The Shining. Like not many people can say that.
Have you watched the new
Shining? Some great.
Have you watched the new Shining?
I haven't. Oh, with Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
I've heard good things about it, but I haven't got round to watching it yet. I need to give it a go.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah. I do need to watch him. Like I was at my mate's house and The Shining. She had the book on it on the side, and I was like, I really can't stand horrors. I'm like the biggest pussy when it comes to horrors. Like, I just can't do it. But it's like a cult classic, isn't it now? It's just like something you have to watch.
Yeah, there's so many iconic moments with like Jack Nicholson and stuff, with his axe and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I love that. The whole process of signing the album, were you signed before? Or was this like write the album, sign it, release it?
So I actually signed I'd made Arms. So I had like a demo of one track, I think. And that got me signed to a label called Helix.
Yeah.
With the intent that I would make an album. So then I got to work on so after I'd done that track, I think I had one other track as well. With Baklava. Yeah, that was it. I'd done a song with Baklava.
She's great.
Who's, obviously great vocalist, great writer. So I had those two songs and they signed me on the back of that and let me make this album.
Amazing.
And now they're probably like, why did we do that? Why did we do that? It's given us like a load of weird music after that. Like they were like the two more accessible songs, and then the rest of it is like pretty weird.